welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to jump straight into the next topic today, which speaks about the famous Yosef and his brothers. Before we jump straight into the next topic, I would like to pinpoint that I'll be discussing the main points of this Torah portion, and God willing, in the future, will be elaborating. The reason for my doing this is because I would like to bring a fundamental point from this whole portion of the Torah reading this week. Before we move on to the next topic, please make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, and turn on the bell for post notifications. I really appreciate people stopping by and watching my videos. I'm tremendously grateful for all the positive feedback that I'm seeing, and I'm eagerly excited to make many more. Let's jump straight into the next topic. Yaakov, at this point, lives in Hebron, which is a town in Israel. After battling Esav and Lavan, his father-in-law, he intended to spend the rest of his days in peace and tranquility. But God's destiny for Yaakov was entirely different. Yaakov favored Yosef over his 11 other sons. Yosef was Rachel's firstborn child and son, and had outstanding qualities than the other tribes. In Yosef, Yaakov, his father, saw a future continuation of himself. He also loved Yosef because in a prophetic vision, Yosef was destined for greatness. From Yosef's youth, divine inspiration rested upon him, and he was constantly thinking about God. His brothers were aware that he was different from them and very special by their father, and thus their jealousy grew. On two separate occasions, Yosef has dreams that prophesies a vision that he'll be ruling over his brothers as being their king. This wasn't fulfilled until 22 years later. Once the brothers were actually told about their dream, their hatred towards Yosef escalated because they suspected that his dreams are actually meaningful. One day, Yaakov, our patriarch, calls for Yosef and says to go check on his brothers, even though his brothers were all shepherds, yet he hasn't heard from them in several days. Yaakov knew that the brothers were hostile towards Yosef. God implanted the idea in Yaakov's heart. It was God's plan that Yosef should be sent to Egypt. Sometime later, when Yosef actually disappeared, Yaakov recalled Yosef's words, "I'm ready to go look for my brothers." And Yaakov thought to himself, Yosef, you knew that your brothers hated you. You knew it. Nonetheless, you told me I'm ready to go look for them just to fulfill the commandment of honoring your father. God guided events in such a manner that Yosef should be brought to Egypt in order to bring Yaakov and his family there as well. Were it not for Yosef's presence being in Egypt, Yaakov would have never left the Holy Land of Israel. As Yosef went to look for his brothers, an angel met him, tried to hint to him that your brothers do not befriend you at all. But Yosef failed to understand the angel's meaningful words. When Yosef finally reached his brothers were already in discussion to plan Yosef's death. One of the brothers, Levi, tells Shimon, "Oh, look who's here, the dreamer." Reuven, the eldest, said to himself, "I am the firstborn. I have to save Yosef and the situation before it's too late." Reuven recommended that they throw Yosef in a pit rather than killing him. His intention was to save Yosef later. The brothers agreed. Reuven left as he went to do some errands. The brothers noticed a group of Arabs approaching, and they agreed to have a conversation with the Arabs to sell Yosef as a slave. When the brothers returned to Yaakov, they lied to him by saying that an animal has killed him. Yaakov, our patriarch, was in dismay, and he tried different signs and different ways of trying to get any glimpse or some sort of sign telling him that Yosef is indeed alive. Even though the signs came back telling Yaakov that Yosef is alive, but Yaakov couldn't comprehend the reality. The divine presence departed from Yaakov, so he couldn't ask God, "Where's my son?" Yosef was eventually brought to Egypt, and the Arabs sold him to a man named Potiphar. Potiphar realized Yosef's uniqueness and refinement. 6 months into Yosef being a slave by Potiphar's house, Potiphar makes Yosef in charge of his entire household except for his wife. Now he was more treated as a family member. Potiphar's wife Zulcha knew from astrologers that they would be having common descendants. Zulcha failed to understand that it was her adopted daughter that the astrologers were referring to, not her own descendants. She pressured Yosef day and night to have relations with her, but Yosef stood by his faith. He sanctified God's name by letting his actions be guided by the Torah and not by external pressure or fear of what might people think or say. His heart was permeated with awe in his Creator, and this fact ultimately decided his behavior. Zulcha realized she had lost the battle into having relations with Yosef. Yosef passed the trial and fled from sin. She gave a cry out and lied that it was Yosef who tried to approach her. Even Potiphar, her husband, came to find out about it. Yet he knew it wasn't true. But he was obligated to put Yosef in jail since everyone in town was talking about it. And he had to save his name and the name of his wife. Yosef was put in jail, yet at night he came back to work in Potiphar's house. While back at Potiphar's house, his wife still didn't give up on the idea to have relations with Yosef. Yosef nonetheless continued to do his work and put his faith in God. While in prison, he encountered Paro, the king of Egypt, butler and baker, whom had dreams which Yosef readily interpreted. Yosef's interpretation all came true. Even though in this week's portion, we are not yet told that Yosef becomes the Egyptians' viceroy, but eventually Yosef's potential, greatness, and dreams are finally revealed. How do we relate Yosef and his whole story to us today? If we look at the overall, what transpired, starting from when he was 17, when he became the Egyptian viceroy at 30, sometimes we can actually see our lives in the same paths as our forefathers. And the key to success in your life is first believing in God, in yourself, and holding on strong. Yaakov saw Yosef's life history a striking resemblance of himself. Just to give a few points, Yaakov's brother Esav hated him. Yosef's brothers hated him. Sometimes in a person's life, family members hate him. Another point. Point number 2. Esav tried to kill Yaakov. Yosef's brothers tried to kill him. And sometimes in today, certain people are faced with this as well. It could be expressed in a physical danger or in a mental health danger. Point number 3. Eventually, Yaakov becomes wealthy. Yaakov left his father's home without anything, as a pauper, but eventually becomes wealthy. Yosef as well. He left his father's home at 17 without anything. And in our today's world as well, we leave our father's home without anything, but eventually become wealthy. Only after leaving the Holy Land did Yaakov marry. Only after leaving the Holy Land of Israel did Yosef eventually marry in Egypt. And by us, it happens today as well. Another point. Yaakov had a dream before to enter his father-in-law's house, Lavan, before to even meet his future soulmate, Rachel. Yosef as well had a dream before to leave Israel, before to enter Egypt. Do we have dreams today too? We certainly do. Yaakov's father-in-law, Lavan, was blessed in the merit of our patriarch Yaakov. Potiphar as well was blessed in the merit of Yosef's righteousness. And we face that as well by our personal lives today. People are blessed in the merit of the righteous. Another point. Yaakov travels to Egypt as well. Yosef travels to Egypt, and the divine presence stayed with them even though they have left the Holy Land. And by us today, when we are connected with God, the divine presence is with us because of that connection. The final point. They both passed away in Egypt, not in the Holy Land. To summarize all these points, the key is when an individual person knows and his family knows that there is that one child who is destined for greatness. God is calling for them and guides them to fulfill their destiny. That person knows who they are. And for those people I say, do not let nothing stand in your way. It seems impossible. So many people against you. So many different challenges like Potiphar's wife. So many times you feel, when will this ever end? When will I be released from jail? And yet, God was with Yosef, and his potential burst forth for all to see. Till today, out of all the tribes, we refer to Yosef as Yosef HaTzaddik compared to his other brothers. Just remember, the key to success in your life is first believing in yourself. See you in the next one.